Okay, perfect. Hopefully we are now live. And make a quick post. Okay.
Yep, I see us live on Twitch.
Sweet.
Good. We're going to be talking about the Hearthstone expansion and new decks. New cards and decks, let's say that. New cards and decks. Okay. I always like to have a little bit of this, like... Wait, why did the... My thumbnail not go. Oh, jeez. Whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying. Oh, I like to have some lead-in time, like a minute or so at least, for the editing, because publish it through Spotify podcasts. So we actually do get to upload video to there as well. If people don't watch the video, they can still listen to it, like the audio version. But I just have our intro music playing for the first part. So like you always see us do like our thumbs up and stuff at the beginning while our intro music plays, which I just find wonderful. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else cares, but I like it.
I think it's good.
Okay, good. All right. I didn't tag us in the post today, so.
Oh yeah, I should get better about liking and retweeting. There we go. Done.
And I don't know why YouTube didn't save my thumbnail. Maybe that's what the error was for some reason. Maybe it just didn't want to work with the thumbnail. I don't know. Okay. Well, we should be live, and that's the important part. And it's all working
Lead-in time accomplished.
Good. Everything's running smoothly. Whew. Okay. All right. Perfect. Beautiful. Okay. Is everybody ready? We good?
Let's
Ready.
do it.
We're all set. Awesome. Welcome to TCCG Roundtable, episode 47. And as always, we have a couple of hosts here. We have myself, dragonrider, DankestDad, and RonMexico. How's it going?
Hey. It's going good. Happy to be here.
Yes.
We're, 3 away from the big milestone. Exciting.
That's right. Oh, I am just so happy that we made it to this many episodes. I love doing this show,
and
chatting with you.
It's Friday. Okay, no, not
It is, though. It is.
It is. You know, the best thing, I was thinking about this, I think I even typed it in part of our notes, is that I've realized a lot of card games come out on Fridays.
Indeed.
So it's always exciting because we're like, hey, this thing drops today soon. Like, that's happening now. I don't know. So when we do this on Fridays, it's exciting because then we don't have to be like, it's happening this other date. No, we're like, today. Things go.
Today soon is the best kind of soon, honestly.
It is. Truly. All right. Well, surprisingly, also with today soon, we have a lot of things happening today and very soon. So let's we're gonna start before we jump into any talk about our news and competitive stuff that we have actually some info on. Yay. I want to talk briefly about Star Wars Unlimited because I got to attend those couple pre-release events And now Dankest has been able to actually like play some. I know before you were kind of talking about how things were really kind of busy and packed at your local scene. So just want to start with like, so what did you end up playing? And was it different than what you were going to play for Star Wars?
Yeah, so my local scene, as it turned out, for the actual first local, got over 20 people for their first week. And they managed to both fire a draft and have a constructed event at the same time. And I did not learn this until the day I was going, so I was freaking out that I wouldn't get to play my play and draft, which is my favorite format. And we ended up turning out I think 15 people. So we had 3 do constructed and a 12-person pod for draft rather than 2 smaller ones. So it was definitely big, definitely a little crazy and unusual, but it was really awesome to have so many people out there playing, trying a new game, and I had the privilege of being the winner. So no complaints whatsoever on that end. It was a blast.
It was never in doubt.
That's right. We don't doubt around here.
Yeah, I had like I was asking about specific drafting rules for the game, and one of the people at my local was very nice, but was like, okay, so drafting in a card game is when you pick cards to make a deck. And I'm like, oh, no, that's the wrong idea. Like, this is not my first rodeo, not my second, third, 100th. No, it's I don't worry about me. I'll be fine on that front. And yeah, it was super, super cool, like just to get to play with everyone. A few people kind of had dabbled in card games, but a lot of people just, love Star Wars, and we're also really loving the game, which is not a thing that lines up well for every card game based on a popular IP.
Absolutely.
Bless that person, though, for starting that way, because I think, like, from my perspective, I would probably have gone the other way and just assumed that you knew what that was and you were talking about Star Wars, but also Star Wars and I would say Lorcana have brought in so many people who have never played a card game before. So if you go in with that assumption that, like, hey, they might be brand new to card games and have no idea what any of this is or means, then I feel like that's probably like the more respectable like approach to take. Or, if you're not sure, you could always just ask the person, like, do you have any card game experience? Have you done anything like this before? You could start that way too, which would be very good. But I think in terms of these, I would probably rather people who are trying to help just start with like, here's the very basics, and then like work your way up to like what you know or don't know, instead of just being like, okay, oh yeah, by the way, we do this, and the other person's like, but what does draft mean? What? And then they're so confused after you try explaining something. So bless them.
Yes. Yeah, so I can say though, like one thing about the game that really struck me just playing is how even though there is so much depth, it also was something that people could latch onto and sort of experience in a way that was accessible to them, even without that sort of card game knowledge. When you were at your pre-release, did you see a lot of that, or was it a bit different?
See which? Sorry.
Or see people who, were able to kind of adjust to the game and learn despite not really being card gamers in the first place?
Gotcha. Yeah, actually, I would say especially the first day of the pre-release, there was a good mix of people who were like brand new, and then people who like had other card game experience and were there. So I think the best example is there was, I think they were like a couple. I don't know exactly, if they were just married, dating, whatever their circumstance was, but there was a couple, and I know that like he had kind of done some stuff before. Neither of them really like knew. So like they were sitting at the table like ready to play, and then while everybody was getting ready and more people were coming in, they were like had a YouTube video up that was playing like how to play Star Wars Unlimited. And so like they were like, okay, we have no idea how to play, but like we wanted to come and try it. And the woman there, she had like never, she's like pretty much saying that like this was the nerdiest thing she'd ever done. Like she'd never been, part of any of this stuff. Like she had no clue. She was opening PAX and she was even like, I don't know, I guess she kind of knew some of the Star Wars characters and stuff, but she really didn't know card games, and she was really nervous, and she's like, oh my gosh, like people are just gonna like steamroll me because I don't even know what I'm doing. And then by the end of the night, she was like, that was so much fun. I hope I get to do things like this again. And I think especially because it was the first day, like a lot of people in that event, we were all like, hey, we're all learning this, because like this is literally the first time any of us have really gotten to play. There was like 2 or 3 guys, I guess they had already played on Tabletop Simulator, but actually like playing in person with people and like really going through the rules more efficiently, I would say, than maybe they might have on tabletop.
Yeah.
We all kind of had that approach of like, all of us are playing. If we mess up, like none of us know what we're doing right now. Like we're all just kind of catching on to this. So I think that helped her a lot too, like with kind of that anxiety of, oh my gosh, I'm jumping in and everybody else knows what they're doing and I don't. It was like, none of us know. None of us know what's happening. So I think that probably made it a much better experience for her too. If this were like, some big event that was already established and she came in and, we were all tryhards or something, she probably wouldn't have had as much fun. Yeah. But yeah, so that was really cool to see. I didn't get to chat necessarily with everybody who was there. I think we had like 16 to start the night for that first one. So, it was a little bit bigger. I didn't get to interact with everybody. So there could have been very well, someone else that also had a similar experience or other people that were completely brand new.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I also think it'd be really great, like just the one element where they're like watching the YouTube video right before on how to play this. Like that's an amazing strategy to just bring with you if you do really know the game like really well or like extremely good. Just like show up to an in-person event, crack open the laptop, and then just like pull up a YouTube video on how to play this game and make sure everyone sees you watch it. And then go in and like crush it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a very
beginner's luck.
Yeah, I think that cost some people at my event, ironically, because well, the fact that a lot of people who are picking up the game are not necessarily card gamers and are Star Wars fans also extends to creators. And I think that some people may have chosen more poorly than others in determining which YouTube videos they should follow for how to draft. So, it's because even though the game is simple, it is complicated enough that, there still is a good amount of strategy to figuring out what works and what doesn't. So, if you are looking out there for some Star Wars Unlimited content, my advice would be to pick more than one person and try to aggregate it all together. Because even if people don't have the right big picture, they're still going to have good ideas that are valuable to you. So getting as many perspectives as you can is the way to go.
It's good advice.
I think that is very good advice for many, many things in life, not just in this particular case. Yes, that tends to be a very good way to go about things. But I didn't have to pull up a YouTube video myself at the table because I spent my entire 4-hour drive on the way there having videos playing in the car, listening. Some of them were people talking about what leaders they thought were going to be good. Some were like doing examples of the like draft and stuff. And some were, the sealed event. And then I listened to some that were like teaching about how to play the game. So I like tried to get in as much. I'm like, yeah, because I had a nightmare the night before. I don't know if I talked about this, but I literally had a nightmare the night before that I got to the event or that I was playing and I didn't know what I was doing. And that me and my opponent had like messed up how to play. And we didn't do the whole like start with 2 resources at the beginning. And we were like multiple rounds into the game and we had just been playing whatever card we wanted with like no consequence and like,
Love that.
Which sounds great. But then like, and then we realized we were, the last people playing and everybody else was like waiting for us and we have to restart our game. And that's my nightmares. Oh no, I'm going to show up to a card game event and not know how to play. So if that tells you anything about me and the kinds of things that I worry about. So I was like, no, my 4-hour drive is going to be making sure I know how to play. So I'm not Showing up completely unprepared.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
I was a little bit more laissez-faire. I just kind of like, okay, I built a few decks on the database. I built a deck for constructed, and then for draft, I'm like, I don't know all the cards, but I'm sure I can read them all as I'm going and figure things out. Card draw is good, rush is good, right? Or ambush in Star Wars terms. We're Hearthstone players here, but same kind of idea. And yeah, sure enough, I was able to win. I found out looking at the draft resources later that I had picked the third worst character, the third worst leader. But it all worked out. And I think that having strong cards can make up for having a leader that on face might have some issues.
Also, I've heard apparently reading the card explains the card, which I mean,
that's nonsense.
That sounds like a way too steep of a requirement for me. Honestly, I'm not going to read it, but
he only reads.
If you're into that kind of thing, it might help.
Yes, if you're into that kind of thing, yeah. If not, that's fine. Don't read the cards. It's okay. You don't need to.
Yeah. Play card. Hit
that's
face.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so real quick, I just want a summary. Like, what's your first impressions of Star Wars Unlimited?
First impression, gameplay is phenomenal. I think the game system at its core is one of the best, if not the best, that I've experienced in a card game. And Fantasy Flight Games knocked it out of the park. And yeah, art's great, cards are great. Community is good, but just hopefully the Star Wars fans learn to love card games.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Let's start to move into our news here. I think we are probably going to switch off. So, there are some different things that we're going to talk about. But the first thing I just want to mention for news is that we do have PAX East happening this weekend. So I did already see, some of the companies, Fantasy Flight Games and a few other, game-related things posting on social medias, saying, hey, like, come stop by our booth or come challenge our devs, our creators to a game. So definitely if there is any kind of big news or anything that comes out of PAX East from any of those card games, we'll keep that up. But I don't know if there is anybody that maybe listens or follows us that is at PAX East. If so, definitely would love to hear your experience if you stop at any of those card game booths. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. All right. Ron, you want to mention some stuff for Hearthstone?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hearthstone, of course, the expansion launched on Tuesday. We are now on day 4 of the Whizbang's Workshop expansion, and the meta is starting to get figured out a little bit. People are realizing that hand buffing in Paladin is extremely, extremely strong, and all other strategies are kind of scrambling to catch up. So there's a decent chance we'll wind up seeing a patch in the somewhat near future, maybe to address some of the outliers. But for now, and as it should be, hopefully they're not really going to do anything for, at least another week or something to let things settle, let players figure out, what's working and what's not. And there's a lot of really cool, fun new things to play around with. There's been a lot of ridiculous shenanigans as far as like crazy random effects, high roll effects that can happen, like is typical of Hearthstone, but it doesn't seem to be warping the meta in a way that it was at the very end of the last meta where they unnerfed a bunch of cards and it went full random. We're not in that stage. And I don't think we will be for the foreseeable future. But right now, it's just a really great time to play new stuff, to experience new things in Hearthstone before everything starts to get solved and you see more and more of the same over and over. Right now, you can see a lot of variety as nobody really knows what's the best outside of, okay, probably Paladin. So it'll be interesting to see it develop.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more later too, because beyond just that initial picture, all of us have been getting a chance to play some Hearthstone and see what this new meta has brought each of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
it's gonna be
I guess
good.
Yeah, I guess for our next game too, we can mention a little bit about Flesh and Blood. So next expansion, Part the Mistveil, has been announced for May 31st, 2024. And also have here notes the first set to launch in Japanese alongside English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. So those developers out there down under and in New Zealand get to head north to Japan and reach out to that crowd as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And it because of all that, it ties in incredibly with what we're going to talk about for their competitive stuff. So that'll be very, very exciting. And even more news for additional card games. Disney Lorcana has also kind of released a whole bunch of stuff, which amazingly, they're starting off the announcements like the third set just came out. Like, what, 2 weeks ago? And now they're like, all right, here you go. Here's the announcement of the fourth set, which is Ursula's return. And so that was announced, and it will include characters from, is it Encanto?
Yep.
I have not actually seen that, although I think I have heard one of the songs from that a lot because it's gone around. But
we don't have to talk about the song.
That's
we
right.
don't talk about the song.
Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful. Flawless. But that set will be coming to local retailers, local game stores, starting May 17th. And then that will be a wider release, as we've been seeing, 2 weeks later on May 31st. So apparently the end of May is going to be huge for card games as well. And they also did announce the third set of this year for 2024 will be coming out August 9th, and then the fourth set will be November 15th, although the names of those sets haven't been publicly announced yet. So those are going to be coming, and when we get more news on that, we'll share that. They also announced there's a new like a box set that they're going to be releasing this summer that will be called Disney Lorcana Gateway. And they're calling it like a progressive learn to play experience. And it will walk you through basically deck building. So it will kind of help you with that. And the box will have 2 decks. It says 2 decks waiting to be created inside of the box. So it's going to be something that you can get for $24.99 US dollars. And that will be coming, I'm guessing, right alongside that third set, because that'll also be coming out on August 9th. So that's, I guess, what, the year mark of when it came out? 2 years?
November will be one. November will make 1 year.
Okay, so a little bit before. So I guess they're really just kind of trying to create this and probably help with people, like I mentioned earlier, that like they might be new to card games still, and they're like, what do I do? So that'll help people build, build some experience with actually building a deck for themselves instead of just the starter decks that come with every expansion. And then not only that, they also announced that they are going to be releasing a brand new cooperative game. So it still is Disney Lorcana, but it's going to be called Illumineer's Quest. And this one's called Illumineer's Quest Deep Trouble. I feel like there's probably going to be more of these in the future, but this one is Illumineer's Quest Deep Trouble. It's going to come with 2 new decks filled with a bunch of new cards and like some new characters. And it's going to be $60. So that's USD. But this is essentially like, that's a whole new brand, like board game pricing, really. So it's interesting because, yeah, it's going to be the same cards that we're used to seeing for Disney Lorcana, but you can play it solo. You can play with up to 2 players, or with using those 2 decks that it comes with. Or if you also have decks already in your collection, you can play with up to 4 people. And there's going to be 4 difficulty levels. So you're going to, I guess, kind of be playing against like a boss or something. And you can play against that in 4 different difficulty levels, solo, duos, or up to 4 players. So there's a lot of combinations of ways that you can play it. And there was something about like there's an envelope or something that also comes with it that I'm guessing you'll get to open like once you beat it or something that maybe will have a new card or something in it, but it's supposedly supposed to help progress the story. So
That's cool.
I don't know what all that means, but yeah, essentially to me that's like a whole new brand new like board game. Well, some of them are way more than that. Depending on
man,
like,
I really thought you were going to say a whole new world. It was right there.
Oh, yeah, it was right there. Dang it. Opportunity missed. But
hey, that's good old Disney, right? Just putting more things. Hey, you like this existing thing? Here's another thing.
And
just on top
the
of it.
cards from that you'll be able to use in like the regular main like competitive games and stuff that we play now. So wow. Like
that last one's a little spooky, but it is definitely an exciting project. Like,
I mean, you gotta I think give additional reasons for people to pay that, right? Like you can have this whole experience with it playing the like game itself, and then you can take those cards into your other decks and still be able to play with them outside of that. So you get your money's worth, hopefully, out of that.
Oh yeah.
Hey, some people would pay the $60 just for the envelope. What's in the envelope?
It could be
I need to
anything.
know.
I mean, if those cards though are mechanically unique, that's that game is going to be basically unobtainium. So
yeah.
But Disney's got a lot coming down the pipeline. That's really interesting, and hopefully Ravensburger's up to task getting it all printed and in people's hands.
Yes. Also, you're saying it the very Americanized way. Just heads up if you didn't know. It's Ravensburger.
Ah, yes. I've been pronouncing it long since I had my first set of Labyrinth as a kid. Yes.
All of us uneducated Americans saying it with an unpronounceable Ravensburger. Oh my gosh.
Tragic.
I know. I'm sorry. That was like a whole like discourse. There was like this whole discourse about that when the game was like still unreleased and people were talking about it, and I just think it's like the most hilarious thing. I'm like, okay, I know, but at the same time it's like most people probably don't even know the name of the company that puts out the game, so like let's just move past it. So I had to bring it up because it's so funny to me.
Yeah. But I know them more for like jigsaw puzzles and, like I said before, Labyrinth. So it's a whole nother realm to actually be playing a trading card game from them. But I think they do well with it.
Yeah.
All right. So next up is Pokemon. So we've been talking about how it's happening. It's going to happen for weeks, but it is finally today soon. And Temporal Forces is out now with over 160 new cards, and it's time to rotate, folks. So enjoy the brand fresh new Pokemon meta, and I know I'll be trying that out. So hopefully I'll be able to report back in the next couple of weeks and let you know what I find out. But it should be a fun game.
New stuff, always good and fun and exciting. Today's the day.
Today soon. Let's go.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I know you just kind of mentioned some other games that you know from companies. How about Fantasy Flight Games? It's been quite a few games that they have put out, but they are the ones that are doing Star Wars Unlimited. And they just put out a like social media post talking basically about the fact that the game basically beat a lot of their anticipated, I don't know if you want to call it like sales or records or, just expectations, but basically the launch and initial reception of Star Wars Unlimited has been much better and much more successful than what they were anticipating. And they kind of already have a plan in place for if that did happen, which I think is fantastic. Like, good, because we definitely don't want a Lorcana repeat. So good on them. Yes. But they basically said that their plan, their kind of contingency plan, if this did happen, was that they are going to be releasing some kind of consistent waves of this first set of product, like kind of continuously over the next several months, and I think up till or through like till when the next set comes out, just to make sure that like everybody has access to cards, and also to make sure that there's not any issues where, because of maybe limited access to cards, that there's not going to be any sort of like scalping issues or anything like that. So they want to make sure that players are still having access to cards that are reasonably priced as well, right? You don't want there to be like this mass issue and then people are like buying them all up and reselling them for triple the price. So I was really happy that they made that post, and I so far have also completely loved the game. Same sentiment as you stated earlier, Dankest. So I think kudos to them, and I think their success is very, very deserved. So cool to see that they had that contingency. And if you are somebody who has not had cards in your area, then hopefully you can still continue finding them, or even find them online.
We'll be watching their career with great interest as they keep working on this game. I'm over the moon. I can't wait till we get the prequels. Give me the pod racers. Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm so ready for more Star Wars.
Love it.
Alrighty. So last but not least, we have Universes. So last time they released a new product, Yu Yu Hakusho, they did the first card game sin of just releasing, no pre-release. And this time we have another card game sin, but to better fit the product. So Critical Role Challenger decks released yesterday on Thursday to align with the show. And I actually got to play with them yesterday at my own local store, and it was really cool. Along with the release, there is a cooperative game that was added where players can play together against the Briarwoods, the antagonists of the Legends of Vox Machina campaign, which is one of the two decks. So very, very cool product. If you're into Critical Role, you can check it out. And, the cast also got to try it. And you can see Matt Mercer handling some of the cards too on social media. But yeah, pretty cool kind of last thing. And Universes has finished out for products now until their next set drops this spring.
Nice.
All right.
And that takes us on to competitive and organized play, where, as previously mentioned, in Pokemon, March 22nd, that is today soon, that is when standard format rotates for TCG Live. And we've mentioned a few times, but just to state once more, cards with the E regulation mark no longer legal for play, and cards with F, G, and H regulation marks will be legal to use, as will any future regulation marks that may be released. We also have a little bit of news for Flesh and Blood, that the Pro Tour Los Angeles is happening this weekend. The world premiere of Part the Mistveil in Tokyo and Japan is a huge event that will have a simultaneous Japanese and English world premiere events running side by side, along with a selection of event-exclusive merchandise, special guests, featured cosplayers, and a weekend-long schedule packed full of competitive, casual, and social gaming. An event you simply cannot miss. We have on May 17th, the world premiere. May 18th through 19th is Calling Day 1, Part the Mistveil sealed deck, and Day 2, Part the Mistveil booster draft. And then on May 19th is Battle Hardened with a Part the Mistveil sealed deck. So lots and lots of stuff for Flesh and Blood, ramping up the excitement. And then moving on to Disney Lorcana, we have new in-store organized play events will begin to roll out in April, Winners will have a chance to earn unique playmats as well as a special version of Stitch Rockstar, a one-time promo card that will only be made available to winners of these select local events. May will be the launch of the game's competitive circuit, dubbed Disney Lorcana Challenge. An unknown number of regional events will give fans the ability to qualify for the North American and European championships, and the first World Championship is slated for early 2025. So somewhat soon, we will have some more information about what's going on with Disney Lorcana competitive, and see if we can get some people rising to the top there. I think I've already seen some like Pixelborn stuff and people playing Lorcana and streaming it like online. I'm pretty sure Savich was playing it and he like hit the top rank too. So a well-known Hearthstone streamer from back in the day, maybe he'll dive into Disney Lorcana competitive at some point. I don't know, just something interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have... Oh, go ahead. You have something to say.
I was going to say, we have our own Itachi, too, competing in events here with AFG. So
That's true. That's true. Itachi's done quite a bit.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome to see Itachi start dabbling in Disney Lorcana competitive, making it to the Worlds, AFG repping Worlds Lorcana 2025. Call it here.
He already hit top 8 for a 2K. So it's just a matter of time.
He's right. If anyone can do it, I definitely have faith in him. And then last up, we have Star Wars with the Poland hosting the first major event, Star Wars Showdown, with 90 competitors. Other large-scale tournaments are popping up with prize pools ranging from 2,000 to 5,000, but many seem to be Swiss events with no top cuts. So we are still waiting for official events for the competitive system.
Yeah. I know I've seen some people chatting on like social medias and stuff. They're like, Swiss and no top cut seems really weird. They're not really sure like what? Okay, I don't know about this. So I don't know if that's just like a limiting factor for the people that are like hosting those events, or like what they're doing, because that does seem a little bit weird. Especially because they still have breakdowns and they still show pricing. Like first place gets a full box, and it's like, okay, so you're still doing like the Swiss rounds, but then I guess they're just going on tiebreakers to decide like who's first, second, whatever. Like,
yeah, it seems a little strange.
Yeah,
but these are grassroots though, right? Like this isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe the organizers just are a bit limited in what they can do.
Yeah, either that, or maybe some of them just don't have as much experience, and they've just seen like somebody else do something like that, so they're like, oh cool, like this is how card game tournaments go. I don't know.
Very well could be. I have seen that sort of thing for Hearthstone, and that can get out of hand. But I guess as another minor other game note, I know Battle Spirit Saga has made the switch over to best of one for their competitive events, which is a similarly kind of polarizing choice, and their reasoning is that they want to condense events to one day as a cost savings so they can do more events. And maybe these organizers have something similar in mind, but can only speculate.
March Madness style.
Yep.
Yeah. I will be really curious to see if those kind of decisions actually like end up benefiting or paying off for the companies or hosting tournament organizers, because I feel like a lot of the players, especially if they're really like into the competitive stuff, don't usually prefer those kind of decisions. So
yeah,
we'll see. How long will those last? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I feel like either the game or the decision will not last, and hopefully it's the decision.
Agreed. Yes. All right. Well, any other news or competitive related things that either of you have before we move to our Hearthstone expansion topic?
Nope.
Well, let's go for it.
Sweet. So, yes, as Ron mentioned earlier, we did get the new Hearthstone expansion, Whizbang's Workshop, earlier this week on Tuesday. Again, we are recording on Friday. So we're a few days in. Things definitely change a lot within the first few days, sometimes within the first couple weeks maybe at like the most, especially depending on what changes may or may not happen. But we thought we'd just kind of dive deeper into talking about our experience with the first few days, talking about decks and certain cards that we've been playing or seeing, or some combination of both. So Ron, I would like to start with you to kick things off, just however you feel like you want to start the discussion. We don't necessarily always have the most like bulleted or like precise conversations. Sometimes we just see where they go, and I want to see how you're feeling about this and where you want to start.
Absolutely. So to start off, I am encouraged with the state of Hunter. You guys know, of course, I'm going to start there because it's my personal favorite. But overall, the state of the expansion, there's a lot of like interesting different options to go with. There's one clear significant standout in hand buff paladin that I think probably gets addressed sooner rather than later. But overall, there isn't a whole lot of additional stuff that seems like it's crazy out there blocking other strategies from existing, at least right now. And maybe that will change, but on day 4, I think there's some really good like aggressive token hunter strategies that are kind of new. I think we underrated the Wheel of Death Warlock quite a bit. That one seems a little crazy and quite strong. And there's a really interesting Demon Hunter archetype that has popped up on the strength of one card that gets to discover demons, and just the fact that there's a really small demon pool, and there's a weapon for Demon Hunter that can draw a demon from your deck, so you pretty much only run that one demon, so you can make sure you draw that and discount it. It does a lot of really interesting, powerful things, and there's an aggressive shell around that makes it kind of work. And then there's some old strategies like the really controlling warrior deck and Plague Death Knights, which I don't understand why people are playing Plague Death Knight and like day 4 of the brand new expansion, but I don't know, maybe Reno hurt them deeply in some way and they need to get back at it. And then there's just like a sprinkling of other stuff that people just haven't quite figured out what's best with. But as of right now, still a lot of different directions you can go, and I'm personally having quite a bit of fun playing a big variety of different hunter decks, which makes me happy.
Yeah. And I can say I've been kind of dipping my toes in some decks less serious, but more for fun. I can say Stars Align Priest and Velarok plus Sonya Rogue with only those 2 minions have not been totally unplayable, but are certainly not going to win you all that many games. But if you're looking for something fun, those are things to try. But so far, I've been really impressed with the strength of board clears that we've gotten that answer these aggressive decks. So more controlling Unholy Blood Death Knight has been something I've been trying out. And Threads of Despair has really impressed. That card is phenomenal. And, even though like aggressive hunters and demon hunters still are really powerful at the moment, there are answers to them. And if you want to play the game in a different way, it's not impossible to deck build your way out of that hole and find answers. But Paladin's really good. Turns out that putting 3 charge minions back into standard alongside Shroomskavate and hand buff leads to some wins. So
shocking.
We'll see if players figure out answers or if Blizzard feels the need to step in and make some tweaks.
Okay, let me ask you both. Have you... My headset keeps unplugging. It is driving me crazy. Then it beeps at me like it needs charged. Have either of you, I think Ron and I have talked about this it's probably been a while now, but we've talked about it on the show, kind of how we usually kind of approach deck building and starting out, in new expansions and new metas. How have you found testing new stuff, either whether it's a I'll say quote unquote meta, more popular like deck, or creating your own deck so far in this expansion versus some of the other expansions we've had in the past? Does it feel the same to you, or is this expansion felt any different in those terms?
So I'll say it's felt better. So I'll go on the record as saying that I think that this is the release of a set I've enjoyed the most since Now 3-Hour Voyage. So far I'm pretty happy with how things have gone. And the way I build is usually trying to focus on synergies between either new cards and more new cards, or new cards and existing cards that I think could be compelling from a competitive standpoint. So other people get to do my work for me with a lot of cards that I have a good feeling will work well together, like Tigress Plushie and what is it? The paintbrush, the painters. Those cards, those work together. I don't need to test it. I know that it works. There's plenty of data. But there are some things I'm less sure about. Like, some players have been trying it. Shutterblock plus Posic has been a very fun synergy that I've been enjoying a lot. As well, I've tried the Purifying Power for Priest, and I got to say, that the card met my not so high expectations, but did do something, and might be something I'll explore later. So trying to figure out, which cards actually have potential to consider for deck building and which ones don't is really my methodology. So at least until I'm playing for some kind of stakes, I like to just try to go into as much unexplored area as I can and see how it fares.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I would say that like deck building or testing out new things right now feels more fresh and fun than it has in a while, but I don't think that is something you can attribute only to this new expansion for Whizbang's Workshop, because a huge reason for like the freshness of all of this, I think, just comes along with the 2-year rotation. Because if it wasn't for the rotation, we were still going to be putting in all of the really broken, powerful cards that just left. You would have to start your deck building with those things, and those things are now gone. So there's like new stuff or old stuff in some ways you can consider it, that is either introduced into the core set for the very first time or is back in the core set for the first time in years. Like, for instance, Leroy Jenkins is back in Hearthstone Standard. So if you're like me and you like a lot of aggro decks, you might, build a deck, open up a class and start building a deck and search Leroy and then put that card in. And okay, now I got to figure out my other 29 cards or something like that. But there might be like certain things that are ubiquitous for a certain type of strategy. Like if you're playing an aggressive deck, there's a really good chance you're going to want Leroy in that deck. As an example, if you're playing some kind of a defensive deck, there is an absolute major standout card in the new core set that's brand new to Hearthstone, and it's a crossover card with Warcraft Rumble, and that is Nomelia, which is an extremely powerful defensive card, especially if you're playing Paladin, because apparently you can have a lifesteal aura in conjunction with that card, and that card will attack and do cleave damage like we've seen with the Hound in Hunter and Death Knight and how powerful that is. But it also has a death rattle that goes off and it hits all enemies, and if you gave that minion lifesteal, that death rattle will also have lifesteal. So did you almost kill the Paladin? Well, too bad, because they got the lifesteal aura and they got Nomelia, so now they have full health again. And also your board died. So there's a lot of different ways to like figure out how to build decks, and you can do it to start around like certain cards with really powerful effects, or you can just look for an overall like archetype that they're pushing. Like there's hand buff and paladin, obviously, that makes a whole lot of sense to build around, and then there's token strategies and hunter because it got a whole lot of support. And if you're playing the wheel warlock deck, you're probably going to want a whole lot of defensive things that enable you to not die while you're trying to have your win condition just tick down, and it says you win the game now. So lots of different things, but a lot of it's really cool, and a lot of it is really fresh because we have so many different options from what we just had, even as recent as the last set. So I find it hard to evaluate too, like how much of it is because of Whizbang and how much of it is because of rotation and new core set. And obviously it's some combination of both.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it's a combination of both. I mean, I think for me, another factor is that this expansion on its own, I think we may have talked about this when we were doing our initial impressions or set review. I don't remember because, I don't know. There was a lot of talking last week.
Indeed.
But there's not a ton, like maybe a little bit, but not a ton of like packaged cards in this set. So, in the past we've had like, the relics, for example, or things that like all kind of have that same thing. So you would start, like you were saying with Leroy, but you would start with like, okay, here's this whole like package of cards that you'd put in deck, and then you build around that. But this set doesn't seem to really have a lot of that. Yeah, okay, these couple of cards really work well together, but you can kind of, it feels like mix and match stuff. I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is like maybe the Paladin Aura set, right? They try to do that. Like, here's some cards that like make your auras have an extra turn or like whatever. But so far, no one's playing that because the buff stuff is just like way better. But I feel like people have been able to kind of make their own decks and mix and match a lot of cards from wherever they'd like more than we have in previous sets. So to me, like, that has felt really fun because I've been able to be like, okay, I'm making this deck, and like maybe I don't want these couple of cards, I'm going to switch those out. Or like, okay, these couple of cards in this class have felt really good. Now I'm going to like throw in these other like 15 cards if I want. And I feel like I can change up the deck quite a bit more than I have in the past, where I think I've felt a little bit more restricted. So I'm trying actually, like, I feel like more deck building than I have in the past. And I've been really enjoying that. We'll say the deck that I've been playing, I'm calling like a menagerie Demon Hunter. Nice. I did guest on, I was kind of a fill-in host, not necessarily a guest itself, but with the Bread and Butter podcast with Tito, and we also had Lorinda join us, talked a lot about casting and stuff, but we were talking about the new expansion, and I was like, maybe I want to call this like Menagro, because it's like menagerie aggro, but then I was realizing, well, I was ending games on like turn 7, 8, and 9, and I was like, I don't know if that's really like necessarily aggro fully, so I was like, maybe it's more mid-range, and I was like, is Menagerange like a good name? I don't know. I'm terrible with naming stuff. So it's like, maybe it's just Menagerie.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a menagerie deck, but I'm playing like mechs and obviously the demon stuff because I like, the new like demon synergies, like you mentioned, like the weapon that the death rattle for it draws a demon and discounts it by 2. But I also put in the Titan, so sometimes I can like discount all of the minis in my hand by 2. So I get to play like a bunch of those. The Fell Screamers are in there, so you can discount demons. But there's a lot of little synergies that it's like they don't specifically say like, oh, you have to put all these cards in. Like I'm playing Bartendo Bot, which draws an outcast and slides it to the left of your hand. So the only 2 outcast, well, it's technically 4 cards, 2 copies of each that I'm running in this deck so far, is the new Blind Box, which is the one that you get demons, and if it's outcast, you discover 2 demons, and then the 6 mana Midnight Wolf that you rush and then outcast. Yeah, so it's like, okay, so I have some beasts, and I'm playing the new keychain, right? The Scarab keychain. I was like, what is it? It's not a beetle. The Scarab keychain. So that's technically a beast. But it's like, I've got all these little things like that, but somehow it all works together, and I just get to play minions, and I get to play stuff, and then I hit my opponent in the face, and I get to play the new demon that has miniaturize a lot for 1 mana, and I get to play a 1 mana 6/5, and then I get to play whatever I discovered as a 1 mana 6/5, and I'm like, this is so fun. And I'm just having like a lot of fun just like messing around with stuff like that. Whereas I feel like I kind of lost that in a lot of past expansions where like I might start testing some stuff and then immediately it's like, yeah, these decks are bad or these cards are bad. But this time I feel like a lot of cards, like there's potential at least. It doesn't just immediately feel like this is crap. And then, okay, just at this point, give me the new whatever everybody figured out. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to explore right now, outside of maybe the few outliers, but it feels like there's a lot more experimentation to be had.
I like your point about there's like more that you can use in outside of just like a specific pushed planned deck. Like as an example, like there are archetypes, and there have always been like different archetypes that wind up being, oh, this is the prevailing way to go with this class or something, or this is one of its main strategies. Like you brought up Relic Demon Hunter, and I'll bring up another one, which is Arcane Hunter. And those cards, I mean, very clearly when those cards are printed, it's like, okay, you need to run these cards that say this thing on them. And that's a mandatory deck building choice. If you're doing this, that's non-negotiable. If you're running Relic Demon Hunter, you need to put in all of the cards that say Relic on them. If you're running Arcane Hunter, you're probably going to be running all of the cards that have Arcane on them in some way or another, or at least, you know, you wouldn't consider like excluding certain things just because they have the Arcane tag. Now it's kind of like the strategies that are being pushed can work in different ways, and they support just an overall concept of an archetype rather than like a specific pigeonholed thing that is like, this is what you do. So there's Token Hunter, that's like the new kind of pushed archetype, but that doesn't say you are required to run cards that say make a token or something like that. Obviously it's going to work better for you, but you have a lot of different ways you can go. And it's just like, there's hand buff paladin. Yes, you need to run cards that buff cards in hand that benefit better from buffs, but there's lots of different ways that you go. And it's not just, you have to run this card because this says this text. So I agree with you in a general sense that they've gotten better, at least in this expansion, as far as pushing things that are not just supporting this one specific plan.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. Like that's a really good point. And you know, like I think that there are some things that they were a little bit more restrictive on. Like for example, I think with the warrior, something like the boom wrench probably is not going to be able to have a wide distribution of decks it could fit in, just because I think the effect is so powerful that they want to be careful about what they give it to. But
fair,
you know, you still can find other mechs that you can use it with. There are other mechs that you could pull into Dr. Boom, and you're not just stuck with those specific handful of cards like relics that must go together always.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about that, Zach, I mean, you don't need other mechs besides testing dummy. Like that's just it just goes dummy together. Like just testing dummy, and then you send a bunch of damage to your opponent's face. I was actually playing that a lot on day one. I think on day one, I did have to like cut my stream kind of early for like a family emergency thing that was going on, but that was all I played for the first like 3 or 4 hours of the expansion.
Just Mech Warrior.
And I was having so much fun with it. I was like, this is great. Like I'm just sending all this damage to my opponent's face. And I was having so much fun.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't tried any warrior yet since the set has come out. So
I played one game of Mech Warrior and I was like, nah. And then there were other warrior decks who were like, well, these are the warrior decks that will definitely still be strong and existed prior to Whizbang, and don't run like any Whizbang cards because they don't need them, and they lost nothing from the rotations. So I can play that maybe later if I ever feel like it, but I probably won't.
Yeah. I feel like there might be some new things to try. Like as an example, my beloved Justicar Trueheart has returned. I can tank up to rank up, and I need to find a way to get that done, because sometimes even the biggest Leroys and deckhands cannot get through 100 health, even with Shroomskavates and all the other extra help. And I don't know. Might be time to hold some opponents hostage and play Hearthstone the way it was meant to be played. Pressing the button.
I think you can probably do all of those things better than main decking Justicar, though.
Why?
It's like a 0 mana +6 that you can run. That seems pretty good.
This isn't a headset. These are earplugs. Can you repeat that? I wasn't listening.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the Justicar deck will take over.
Positive. But yeah, I'm there are still cool things to try. I think looking kind of from like an anti-meta perspective, I think that trying like some sort of control paladin might be intriguing just from a conquest perspective, because Cold Feet and Resistance Aura do some things against good decks now that other classes cannot do. And well, it probably is more efficient from a ladder perspective just to play your hand buffs and charge minions. There might be some applications in, closed list open class, if you play in THL or something like that, where perhaps there is some build of Paladin that goes more strictly defensive, trying to capitalize on that. So we'll see. But like, there's lots of untapped strategies still, even after the first couple days of release. We haven't found it all.
Yeah. Speaking of, by the way, I came across something that I bet you would really love, Dankest. Somebody in my chat sent me a priest deck to play, and I'm like, sure, I'll play everything because it's early expansion. I know I usually say no priest, but like I'll play around with priest this time around. And they sent me a deck with Raza the Resealed, Heartbreaker Hadanis, and Papercraft Angel. Of course, you see where this is going. The deck runs Careless Crafters for the 0 mana heal cards, as well as like Funnel Cakes and Anduin's Gift, like cheap 1 mana things to do, and 2 Miracle Salesmen, so you can have the 0 mana cards to refresh your hero power on the crazy turn. Well, I wound up queuing into a warrior. They gained a ton of armor. They were doing all the things to like get way out of range. And I had a hand full of the stuff, and I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna send it. Maybe it gets there. And yeah, it did. I exact lethaled with a Hadanis, like all from hand, Hadanis Papercraft Angel play, because I'd already played Raza the Resealed earlier. And then I had a 0 mana hero power, and I'm just like, all right, time to machine gun. And I refreshed, and I had a Funnel Cake, and I refreshed some more with the Funnel Cake, and I used the gift and the main, draw more, and I already had like 2 salesman dice. I had the 2 snake ones.
That deck is actually pretty gross.
I was like, yo, what the hell? And they were at like 38, and they had a couple minions on board, and they just died.
Have you seen that before, Dankest?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
I've played against it a lot with my priest, Stars Align Priest, which you're going to see an awful lot of once the meta settles. But most of my games, the Hadanis deck kind of wasn't able to get going just because I exerted pressure. But I really see the potential though, like, because Paladin nowadays does something very unpaladin like, which is not really contest the board hard until the mid game, which is not usually how Paladin rolls. But if the priest can get down their clergy they can play their funnel cakes, draw their cards, and set up their combo. Big paladin minions healing to 30, those will not save you. And I think that's a pretty cool niche to kind of be in. And maybe that archetype can get refined and be like a soft check or something one day.
Yeah. 'Cause I've faced against it as well. And I even had, I think I was playing my Demon Hunter deck, and I'm playing Pazic in there. So I got to play Pazic and put the little audio bots in their hand to fill up their hand. And they burned a card. And it was Raza. And they still were able to cobble enough damage together at the end to kill me, even without having like free hero power. I was like, wow, this is like, dang. Hadonis was dealing quite a bit of damage. Yeah, so I was pretty impressed with that deck. I definitely think it is a little like flimsy, and yeah, if you can't get your stuff together, or if you lose specific cards, or if you just get killed like too fast, it does feel like it, or seems like it takes a little while to get going, but it could be something that sticks around longer. This is why I like these new metas. I hope there's not a ton of nerfs, as I'm expecting that they will probably do some sort of adjustments pretty soon. Like you said, maybe like a week after, maybe like 2 weeks after the launch at like the latest, because it seems like that's kind of what their cadence has been, like either a week out or 2 weeks out, depending on the shape of the meta and how things are going. But I hope that they don't change too many things, because I still feel like, yeah, maybe Paladin or something, maybe Warrior has that little bit of outlier feeling, but I would like some room for the meta to breathe a bit, before we just start like nerfing everything, because I do think there's some really cool stuff. And if we all kind of agree that it feels like you can, change things out and try different like combos of cards in your deck, like I would love to see a little bit more time for those strategies to have room to surface before we just nerf everything.
I think my hot take, if I were to do a balance patch today, would be to remove Deckhand and Leroy from core, put back some other 5, and give Jolly Roger into core instead of Deckhand. So
I can see that.
Give Rogue something actually good to do with the Rogue stuff. Because you heard me in the like review, right? I thought it was there. It should be there.
Yeah.
Put Jolly Roger back. And then after that, maybe like preemptive nerfs on Threads of Despair and Defile. And then I think we're chilling. I think we have a fun meta after that. And Defile is my favorite. That hurts me to say. It's like grounding your favorite child.
Defile's an absolutely insane card. I mean, it always has been.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you do like those things, and I think that you pretty successfully cull most of the outliers from this meta, and then you give the different forms of aggro a way to breathe. Because I think like that's really the thing about Paladin that's so wild, is that even if you're able to answer all the big minions, they still just eventually work their way up to a 15-12 Leroy that gets to smack you. And
the only thing I've seen effectively beat Paladin, at least like a reasonable clip, is Control Warrior, like a control cycle Odin Warrior that basically removes all the stuff, gains so much armor that it's out of range of hand buff strategies, and then has Odin fast enough to like slam that down with the 1/3 pigs that double your armor gain, and then they just one shot the Paladin rather than getting one shot at themselves. But it's basically still a race to see who kills the other one in one single burst of damage, because both decks are incredibly capable of just, oh, did you not kill me? Okay, well, you're dead now, or you can't possibly win now because I'm gaining like even more, life that you could possibly deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally been having success with Control Death Knight, but I am also not at the highest of ranks. My standard ladder has MMR has deteriorated a bit over my nice ladder vacation for the last couple months. And I think as I face more quality opponents, we will see how the deck fares. But it's not. I think I would say that the Death Knight is favored from my impression, even at the highest of levels. But it's just a question of, is it like really favored or like 51-49? And I think it might be just essentially even, and Paladin just is so much stronger against everything else that the meta offers.
Yeah. That is going to be probably the number one question that will persist up until our next patch, whenever it might be, is what to do about Paladin. I think Habo Gabo recently posted that he was putting up a 75% win rate with the hand buff Paladin, all on rank 1 legend. Like, he's literally played 100 games after rank 1 legend and won 75 of them with exclusively that deck, which I know he's one of the best players in the game, but that is an absurd win rate for any person to post ever with one particular type of deck. It speaks to the deck being extremely overtuned, because there's just too much. There's just way too much that the deck is capable of doing compared to what other decks can do to counter it.
Yeah, and like I think it's like an interesting one too, because it's not that any one of the deck's particular strengths are problematic. It's just the fact that it has all of them at once.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Because like the anti-aggro and life gain would not be a problem if the deck could not pretty much one-tap anything with charge minion plus Shroomskavate, and that wouldn't be a problem if the deck couldn't, answer every aggro board and gain all of the life total in the world. So, if they, plus it has all the card draw it needs, which I think is fine if it keeps it. It has like lots of different tools. There are ways to use cards like Tarim to remove things that are big, which I think is also fine. But the early like life steal and clears along with the late game combo is just a lot to handle at once. And I think as long as Deckhands and Leroy exist in Standard, we're just going to keep seeing this over and over again for the next 2 years or year at least.
Well, I don't think Deckhand and Leroy are even a problem, but they are a problem in conjunction with all of the other things
right, exactly.
Clearly wanted to push, which is like, okay, well, if you're pushing these things, then why did you bring back these things?
Right. And
you can't have all of it.
And if you were to nerf Paladin, then I think Deckhand and Leroy would be fine in the other classes. But surely there's going to be something that comes up in the next couple expansions and mini sets that uses Leroy and Deckhand in a similar way. Because those cards have always been super strong. Like,
I saw some people worried about like Leroy Shadow Step for what was coming in this expansion, and it's like this is 2024 Hearthstone. That might be too slow. I don't think Rogue is gonna get away with being able to do that. It turns out it's just a lot better to buff your Leroy and get a Wind Fury. Yeah,
8 mana for 12 versus 8 mana for like 30. It's pretty good, but my own personal answer has been Stonehill Defenders and Ma and Pa, and out of my jungle.
The Leroy conversation is really interesting to me too, because even though it does seem like maybe Leroy is a problem, I mean, in charge overall, there's a reason that they did kind of take it away for a while. But I feel like if you didn't quite have the buffs and the things to really enable Leroy as that gigantic minion, I don't think it would be quite as much of a problem. But maybe it still would be a higher inclusion in more decks right now, because we are also in that early 4-set meta where we have the least amount of cards in Standard. So as a charge thing that you can use to finish games, maybe we're going to see it a little bit more frequently now. And I think there's kind of been the same problem with several legendaries during the first set. I think the other big one that people talked about a lot was Alexstrasza, when that was a thing, right? Like Alexstrasza during the early set, like you'd play it and deal 8 damage to your opponent, and then they were dead, and people were like, "Oh, Alexstrasza should get nerfed." And at that point, even I was, because I was so tired of seeing it because it felt like it was everywhere, and I was like, I hate seeing it in like every single deck. And I think that was the frustrating point. But as soon as we got more cards, it was like nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And then then it kind of came
like,
around as like occasional, thing. But
it's kind of like that was just a weak card in terms of like power level, but the power level of everything was so low that like, okay, this is one of the only finishers that we can use in a low power level set. So everybody used it because they're like, well, we need some kind of finisher. And then Rogue could do like weird Tenwu Shadow Step stuff and make it like extra broken.
And I think a lot of people have kind of come into this expansion with the sentiment that they expect this expansion. Overall, it looked like a low power level. So I think in a way it's like kind of that same philosophy. I do think overall probably Leroy just as a card on its own is better than the Alexstrasza, but I just feel like the conversation of like a legendary ending games, like that was the closest example that I could think of like the 4 set, like it's just ending games. And I again don't know necessarily or think necessarily that it's Leroy itself. So I think it's just a kind of combination of like all the buff stuff, it being such a small set of cards right now, like for the standard card pool, and just kind of all of that combined is my thinking. So
and like even and even if Shroomskavate just didn't exist, Leroy is no longer a problem with the current card pool. If the hand buff doesn't exist, Leroy is no longer a problem with the current card pool. It's just the combination of access to charge, hand buff, and Wind Fury in one class is not quite not quite what people might have expected. And like in the context of everything else, like you were saying, Ron, Leroy is just pedestrian for what we're doing nowadays.
Yeah. Who could have seen this coming, that, buffing a charged minion and giving it Wind Fury could be problematic.
I do love, though, that if they kill Leroy, we still have Freebird, but don't tell anyone.
Freebird.
Like, unironically, people will just play Freebird.
Like, literally, they would have. It just would have been Freebird in Leroy's place, almost certainly. And maybe you even run 2 copies of that. It's like overall a little bit weaker and slower, but you can still do the same thing, which is breaking games all over the place.
Yeah, and I think Freebird might start out small enough and be expensive enough that it's like the healthy form of charge for that deck to have. Like, you still can pull off the big combos, but you've got to sit on that Freebird for a really long time because, you're basically doing 8 less damage than you would be with Leroy, or paying 3 more mana than you would for deckhand. So,
well, if you play one Freebird early on, then the next one will have a whopping +2/+2.
Yeah, that's true. And you can discount it with the Cattle Rustler. Oh man! All right.
Oh, yes. Now we're talking.
All right, we may have gone off the rails at the end here now.
But see, that's why this is so good. We just need those couple of cards to, those kind of outlier cards to be adjusted so that you can't just do super like big, gigantic, broken things with something. But
yeah, overall though, my impressions, it's a good expansion. It's a good experience right now. We're just at the we need to talk about Paladin point.
Yeah And like, I'm excited to see what some of the other classes can do once they kind of get freed up a bit, because I feel like Druid is one that has just been sort of put by the wayside by all of the changes in current meta trends, just because like the Awalonia stuff seems like it's a little bit too slow to compete with Paladin. And I want to play some Druid. I want to swipe some people, make some spell damage. I think it could be fun. So hopefully we get a chance to dive back into that.
Yeah. I love how we opened the show with, we don't talk about we don't talk about the song, to we need to talk about Paladin. We've come full circle. Yeah, I think for my kind of like final closing thought, I would just say like I do feel like this has been a really fun meta to just play around with stuff, test stuff, and I feel like been a lot of variety. Sure, we might have a couple of classes that people are like, these classes are doing much better than other classes, but even within those, we're seeing multiple kind of decks and variety of decks across multiple classes, which I think is fantastic. So I'm very excited. I've been having a lot of fun and been having a lot of fun creating my own decks, and I'm going to keep playing my am I gonna have to call it Menagerange Demon Hunter?
It's the placeholder name for now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna call it.
If you keep having fun, we might have to have a little exhibition match here. See who's gonna be the grand champion.
Oh, that would be amazing. So yeah, I hope that other people have been having fun. Let us know. We definitely like to hear what other people think as well. So all
right. So with that, whose turn is it this week?
Oh, I actually forgot. Is it me? Oh, it's me.
I
decided to bold the name, so the next week we can just bold the next name. So
that's a good way to go. Yeah, my bad.
It's all good.
Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us this week. If you or someone you know would be interested in joining us, please reach out to us. You can email us at TCCG Roundtable at protonmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at TCCG Roundtable. Use our top pinned tweet for a link to our Discord, or use the link in the description or show notes. And you can check out the video version at youtube.com/c/dragonrider TCCG. And you can find us everywhere you can find audio podcasts. Also, if you happen to be one of our many, many physical card game players and want some extra card game accessories, you can help support us directly with our Inked Gaming affiliate link, and also get sweet merch like playmats and other card game accessories. And you can find us individually. First off, with our main host, Dragonrider. Where can they find you?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at DawnieDK. That's DAWNIEDK. You can find me both on Twitch and YouTube, Dragonrider TCCG. And you can also find me every week talking about standard Hearthstone specifically at the Dr. 3HS podcast.
Fantastic. And DankestDad, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/daddankest, on YouTube as DankestDad CCG, and on Twitch as DankestDad CCG. So, gonna have to fire up that stream again at some point. Get some of these Whizbang games in there as I recover all of the points I've so tragically lost over the last few months.
Can't wait to see more Stars Align Priest on your Twitch stream.
You will not.
Nice. And lastly, you can find me individually on Twitter at Ron_HS, and you can find me streaming Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch at RonMexico HS. Once again, thank you all for joining us. That is our show, and we will see you at the round table.